Live. Let's see. We'll see that I have audio. We'll see that I have video. And we'll get this show on the road. Okay, do I? Yep, there's audio, there's video. It's me, it's the Nazarite, Johnny Giraffe, bringing you Hebrew lore from days of yore. One person already here. Hello, one person. Hi there. Hello. So let me know what's up with you. Okay, so yesterday was a great chat. I don't think I even got to half of what was being said there. So much going back and forth. Some of it I was able to see, some of it I was not. It's, part of my thing where I go really literally chat by chat as to the best of my ability. I've tried doing it the other way with just randomly going and choosing, and I don't know what will be. Time will tell. But right now, I would like to continue, and I'm going to just dive right in. Okay, so alternate account 4868 asked, can you talk about kosher food? Now, alternate account is not here, I'm assuming. If he or she is, that's great, but I'm assuming that that's not the one person watching me right now. But I am going to go and do it either way. Hello, other person, 2 people here. Hi there, and hello. To those who are observing and celebrating Christmas, it's Christmas Eve, so good for you people. I hope that it is a joyous and lovely holiday with good vibes, good energies, and good things, good energies. Okay, let's go. So talk about kosher food. So kosher food in general, first of all, we go back to Eden, and in Eden, everything was vegan, right? And that was kashrut. That was the kosher thing to do. The kosher thing to do was to eat what comes from the earth. Later on, after the flood, after the Noah and his children exited the ark, and the women, of course, and the animals, Noah took sacrifices from the ritually clean animals and made sacrifices, and the whole thing with the rainbow and no more floods and so on. And the laws of kashrut started to be established there, meaning that you are allowed to partake of meat of animals. Later on, Christ is king, says Thanos was right. Well, you know what? He could have been king, maybe for the time, but he died, so that's where I stand. But do tell me, why do you think Christ is still king? And Thanos was right. I mean, he had something about the balance, right? But even Thanos himself, once he got what he wanted, he found that it's not really what he wanted because he needed to start from scratch. So everybody will understand and be grateful. Okay. He is king, says Thanos. Well, okay, once again, you'll have to literally spell it out for me because I am ignorant. Now, kashrut basically has to do with the animals that can fly, right? Birds and such. Animals that are on the ground and animals that are in the sea. So animals that are in the sea, if they have a fin, right, and they have scales, they are kosher fish. Meaning all of the other things, all the other seafood is not kosher. If it's a land animal, right, it needs to have a split hoof and it needs to chew its cud, right, and have the food go up and down. And it needs to have the split, and it needs to have a hoof. And when it comes to birds, it needs to be a non-predatory bird. And also, right, things like chicken, things like doves, things like ducks. Hey, Diddy Kenny is here. Nice to see you again, man. Raid says 3.5 incher. Actually, I'm not 3.5 inches. But you know what? If it makes you feel good, yes, I have a tiny, 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 tiny micro penis. Does that make you happy? Raid, it's good to see you, man. Hey, you know what they say about people with 3.5 inches? I mean, I don't, but you probably do. I don't know. Okay, so Merry Christmas indeed to all those who are celebrating Christmas. Yo, chill. I'm sorry, when you said 3.5 incher, maybe I misunderstood. Did you mean my nose? Did you mean something else? Let me know. And, right, so the laws of kashrut. Now, the laws of kashrut also have to do with how you shecht or slaughter the animal. There is such a thing as kosher butchering, or shchita as it's known. It needs to be done with a specific sort of knife. It needs to be done by a specific sort of person. I mean, not necessarily, but that's how it's done nowadays. The blood must be covered, right, as the rules are laid out in the Torah. And you're not allowed to eat certain parts of the animal, right, because of Jacob and the angel who wrestled, or the messenger, however you want to look at it, right, who wrestled. And the idea is this, as far as I'm concerned, as a vegan, right? The problem is not with the final shechting or slaughtering of the animal. The problem for me is everything that's leading up to it now with agricultural farming and with different people who are raising cattle in a way that is industrial. That's a very, very difficult issue because even if you say that the physical act is done in a very humane and empathic kind of way, right? In a kosher way, everything leading up to that is totally not kosher. The way that the animals are raised, the way that the animals are treated, right? In these mass-produced factories, and it's really, really terrible, right? Now, it used to be that you would hunt and you would look at the animal in the eye, right, so to speak, as you took its life. You gave it respect. It used to be, let's say, that you had a relationship with the animal on a homestead, on a farm, something to that. But now you just go to the supermarket or to the store and it's there packaged neat, and that's really a problem because this is a living thing. And even if you say, yes, 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 the slaughtering was done in a kosher, butchering, shechting, according to the mitzvahs of the Torah sort of way, right? It's a ritually clean animal that's being slaughtered in a ritually clean way. Everything leading up to that, the physical and psychological abuse that the animals go through, make it to a very big degree completely not kosher from the onset. And that's a problem. I have a problem with that as well. Hey, Billy Daft Cunt is here. I once ate 75 slices of American cheese and went temporarily blind. You know what? That is one of my favorite bits from Homer Simpson, especially considering the fact that it's Smithers and Burns up on the ceiling just waiting for him to finish. And they only fall when Marge walks in. Oh, it's so good. So good. Oh, I'm sorry, Man Raid. You were talking about how much I like to take. My bad. No, I like to take things a lot longer than that. So you're wrong. But, nothing wrong with 3.5 inches. Do you drink milk as a vegan? No, only vegan milks or breast milk. I don't drink other types of, I don't drink cow milk. I don't drink goat milk. I don't drink yak's milk, right? The kosher animals. I don't know if a yak is kosher. Oh, I think it is. Like a bison? I think it might be. Point is, hey, Morrow Cookie is here. How you doing, Morrow Cookie? Wait, hold on, I'll get the tea bag out. This morning, this fine AM, have a cup of green tea, and I love it. Hey, fantastic gay outfit. Thanks, man. You're staying off the grid. YouTube is not the place to stay off the grid. However, maybe it is. Are you literally staying off the grid? How do you get your power? What do you do for sewer or septic? Tell me. Who's this dumbass? Said Mud Monkey. I am a dumbass, and how wonderfully astute of you to observe that. I'm just a regular dumbass here in the Middle East. Wishing you a good day. Okay. How long have I been gay? Once again, it's not that I'm against being gay. I just never met a guy that I wanted to sleep with. So, how long? I guess since birth. But I haven't actually consummated my totally gay feelings. It's just the way it goes. Almond milk is deadly and it's not organic at all, poison. No, you know what? Some almond milk, look, it's based on water with some almond in it. If it's industrially, if it's mass-produced stuff, yeah, it's not going to be the best. But my favorite is oat milk. Oat milk is probably my favorite, for sure. Let's see. Where were we? Okay. Do vegans drool when they mow the lawn? Do vegans drool when they mow the lawn? Asks Cold Slayer fan. Slayer, like the band? I never got into them, but I didn't give them enough of a chance. I'm more of a Pantera guy myself, and early Metallica. But if you're talking about a different Slay, then by all means do. Do vegans drool when they mow the lawn? Why would that be the case? I don't know. Is it about, oh my God, I'm going to eat this grass? Could be. Could be. Everything about yo goofy ass screams Jew, says Ilya Durkut 4846. Thank you. I appreciate that. I do. El Grande says, put your head in the toilet and flush yourself. But that would only get my costume all wet. What benefit would that bring? Also, then my hair would be wet. It takes so long to dry. No, I don't think so, man. Thanks, though. I appreciate it. Merry Christmas, says Eric. Merry Christmas to you. I'm not a follower of Jesus, but to those who celebrate, sure. Sauron fell off, man. Shaking my head, says Ezrote, or Zerote. Sauron fell off? You know, you can't just come here to a live stream and besmirch the Dark Lord. You can't do it, right? He is the Lord of the Ring, and the rings, for that matter, the Lord of all the rings. But I'm not sure what you mean by Sauron fell off, but okay. I love KBBQ. I have a question, he says. I'm personally a Christian, but I have many Jewish friends. I have a question on kosher foods. Do you need a special type of kosher if you get dairy products with meat? So dairy and meat are not kosher from the get-go. There are 3 instances in the Torah where it says that you should not boil a kid in its mother's milk. And from that, our sages, the rabbinic Judaism, say that you're basically not allowed to mix milk and meat together. If you eat meat, you need to wait a specific amount of time, to each their own tradition, usually between 70 minutes and 5.5 hours. And then only then are you allowed to eat meat. Now, over the generations, it got to it that also poultry was brought into this. And so, according to halacha, right, rabbinic law, if you eat chicken meat, even though it's traditionally, initially not the case, and you could take a pulki and just have it with butter, nowadays, if you eat chicken or red meat, right, beef or chicken, you need to wait as many hours as your tradition is. And you're not allowed to mix meat and milk. You are allowed to mix, according to some, fish and milk, right? Bagels and lox with cream cheese is a very famous thing. But there are different traditions who say, no, you need to separate that as well. Not to the extent that it's 6 hours or 70 minutes, but you need to have this separation between the different degrees of meat, right? Where you have milk that comes from meat, and then you have fish, then you have poultry, right? You have dairy. You have red meat. So you can't get kosher products that have dairy and meat if you go by rabbinic law. You can, however, have meat, and then many hours later, depending on your tradition, you can have dairy, or you can have dairy and then wait a certain amount of time depending on the type of dairy. Is it a soft cheese? Is it a hard cheese? Is it straight up milk? Is it powdered milk? You need to have the specifics according to the halacha or rabbinic law that those people follow. So that's what I have to say about that. Raid says, didn't you get ribs removed so you could suck yourself? You know, Snopes, go to Snopes. I heard that when I was a boy about Marilyn Manson, and over time I found that that was not the case, and that there were actually a few other people about which said rumor was spread, but it has no basis in reality. And no, I didn't get ribs removed so I could suck myself. I don't think I would have the agility or the flexibility to do that right now. But, we'll see. I just heard that from my friend, he said. So no, it's not a special type of kosher. It's not kosher from the get-go. Rida Faith Official, what religion are you, and can you explain it, please? No hate. I am a Hebrew man, which some would call a Jew. I go with Hebrew. It's more all-encompassing. Jew is a little bit more limiting in its scope and its in associations. Ilya says, free Palestine. I agree. Free Palestine from Hamas. Free Palestine from religious extremism. Free Palestine from terrorism. Free Palestine from the radical a-holes that are running it. We should have peace. We should make peace with the people and get rid of that horrible, horrible government. Cold says, yes, thanks for replying. I don't mean any disrespect. Hey, none taken. I am a Slayer fan. It's good. They have good music. The things that I have heard are very good. I even went to a metal concert when I must have been over 20 years ago, local here in Jerusalem, of a few cover bands, or rather, they had original music, and at the end they covered Seasons in the Abyss, which was really, really great. It was fun to see it live, even if it wasn't Slayer on stage playing it. It was really awesome. Okay. So yeah, Slayer have a few good songs. I never went deeply into their discography, but maybe I will at some point. Maybe I will. I don't know. Okay, let's continue. Oh, wait, it just jumped. Hang on a second. All right, here it is. Mishi Tokiri. Hi there, Mishi Tokiri. I'm so glad I grew up deep in the country and wasn't taught a bunch of stereotypes. Well, you know what? You're going to encounter stereotypes and racial bigotry wherever you go. People are going to be racist. People are going to have a preference. But there's a difference between having a preference which is like an in-group, out-group thing, and actual racism or bigotry, which is hatred, which is real negativity and malice, where it's like, okay, look, stereotypes are based on actual things. These stereotypes are here for a reason. It doesn't mean you need to go according to them. It doesn't mean you need to presuppose. It doesn't mean you need to establish your set opinion, right, on stereotypes, but they are here for a reason. They came from things that might have a nugget of truth, but it's still incumbent on you to maybe take them into account, but not set your life according to that, because then you miss out on the individual. And if you come armed with a ton of stereotypes and preconceived notions, then you completely miss the mark of engaging with a person as such. Are you a furry? No, I am not a furry. I don't quite get into that. I haven't tried. I'm not knocking it. To each his own. As long as it's safe, sane, and consensual, I'm on board with it. But no, I'm not a furry. Not really. We stand with Israel, says Mud Monkey. You know what? I do too. I stand with people who want peace. I stand with people who want peace and love. That's who I stand with. Freak, says Shy5780. Yes, and proudly so. What am I going to be, like a regular person? What good is that? No, I'm just kidding. But Arnold Schwarzenegger said, you're never going to be truly original if you do what everybody else is doing. So it is on you to discover what it is that really truly makes you original, and you're allowed, obviously, to go with the crowd. Follow the rules, but know when to break them, know when to bend them, know when to go on your own path. And there's that very famous Zen koan, when you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him, right? You need to have a master for some time and to gain a discipline and to get under the yoke of a burden. But then at some point, you probably need to branch out and do your own thing. And if when you're doing your own thing, you meet a master on the road, kill him. In other words, don't physically kill him, but understand and say, okay, I had that time, now I'm doing my thing, right? Be confident, don't be a fool, don't lean on your own misunderstandings, right? But be confident in your ability to discern, and that's something you need to cultivate. Zionism is fart, said Christopher Wick. Well, Zionists do fart every single day, so yes, I'm inclined to agree. Zionism is fart, as far as everybody else is fart as well. It was a safety survival thing, says Max. I'm sorry, what are you referring to, Max? I'm not sure. Free Palestine from Hamas terrorists, says Rakesh Sharma. I agree, thank you very much. You good, says Aya545. Yes, I am. Are you good, Aya? How you doing? How are you all? Shalom from India. Your God doesn't exist, says none your business, broski. I think I've met you before. Yes, I agree. My God doesn't exist in the sense that you think it, but I don't know God. All I know is how God reveals himself to me, which means that I can't say, right, existence means non-existence. It's a duality. But God is above those dualities. It's a unique, special one, singular creator, and I am a creation. And as such, right, I can conceptualize existence and non-existence. And I can say that existence comes from non-existence and that it's a duality. And already, since it's a duality and something that I can perceive with my senses or my mind, already it's not God. So yes, you are completely right. My God does not exist in the sense that I might exist. So you're absolutely right about that. Haram, says Justin Davis. Yeah, quite possibly haram. I love BBQ says, thanks for answering. Look, you're welcome to ask other people. What I gave you is the strict rabbinic law. But there are Reconstructionist, Reform, Conservative who might have other rulings. By all means, whichever ruling or rabbi, master, halacha your friends follow, ask them, figure it out, and then you'll be able to do it. And be able to really come prepared, right, to whatever engagement it is. Mason Mayer says, my buddy is Jewish and said you shouldn't eat milk products because milk consumption should stop after you are a baby. Well, that's not a Jewish thing. That's more of a vegan thing or more of a mammalian thing, right? All mammals, as far as I know, are weaned off of their mothers, and once they are weaned off of their mother's milk, they don't consume any other milk ever. I might be wrong. You'll have to ask somebody who deals with mammalian species, right? And that's not me. I'm far from a maven in such things, but I know that if we take a human baby, once you are, right, when you're born, you're breastfed, and that's everything that you need right there. Or, a different formula or whatnot, something which is milk which gets you going. However, once you are weaned off of that breast or bottle, you don't need milk ever again. Now, breast milk is very highly medicinal, right? And it can be used for many different purposes, I suppose, inside and out, especially for babies, but even afterwards. But it's not necessary, right? It's not necessary. So people say that you should stop consuming milk. That's true. Um, but I still enjoy milk, vegan milks, right? I enjoy oat milk, I enjoy almond milk, I enjoy soy milk. I don't partake of it too much. But listen, if I'm having cereal, what am I going to put? Water? No, you put a vegan milk. Max says 3,000 years ago it made sense. Well, look, many things that were ancient and don't make sense now still have a nugget of truth and righteousness to them, but it's up to you to evolve along with your faith or your religion. You should have the ability to discern cautiously what it is that you need to keep, what it is that you need to let go of, and what is it that needs to be, right? What did, what's her face? Umbridge, right? Professor Umbridge, that we should root out progress for the sake of progress should be discouraged, and we should know what we should keep and what, right? And in her speech to Hogwarts. Hogs Baffleworth says Palestine doesn't exist, it's just a bunch of losers with no food and lots of bombs. Well, the British mandate of Palestine existed, but that included Jews as well. For some reason, the world forgot that Palestine was something that Rome gave to the area. That's not what it was at all. Palestinians did not exist. It's not an actual people. However, there were people living here that weren't Jews. Obviously, Christians, Muslims, Baha'i, Rasta. Throughout the entire span, there have always been people here. This land has been conquered and reconquered and fought over and liberated, and so much war, so much, blood just running through this country nonstop, pretty much. Conquest and conquering. So it's not a bunch of losers. I believe ultimately it's people who are brainwashed, who are indoctrinated to hate and to be wicked and to believe that this is what God wants from them. They truly, earnestly, honestly believe that God will reward them if they kill the Yahud, right? God wants everybody to be under the law and rule and sword of Islam and to submit to the will of Allah. And as such, they are thinking that they are doing a great kindness to the world. They are the ones bringing balance to the force. They are the ones who are making things right as the final revelation and the final prophet. And I'm saying, okay, but you can't be too radical about that. Otherwise, the war is never ending. So, but Palestine, it exists as a people because the world has acknowledged them. The world made this up, and so they went with it. The Palestinian flag and people was a 1960s invention, right? Arafat and the PLO, the Muslim Brotherhood from before. The flag was only invented in the 60s. That whole movement was invented in the 60s. And then they sort of grafted onto this idea that they are some ancient people. No, they are not ancient people. There was never a Palestinian coin, anthem, land, leader, nobody, nothing, does not exist ever in the annals of history. It's all made up, but the world has accepted them as Palestinians with a whole heritage, and so, even the Israeli government. So what are you going to do? Now, forget the label. These are people. You can call them refugees if you want. You can call them warmongering, hate-filled people if you want, but they are here. Nobody's going anywhere. Nobody's going anywhere. And Gaza has been obliterated, and still nobody's going anywhere. We need to make peace. Peace is made with enemies. Peace is made between rivals, and it needs to come to that already. It's time. It really is time. Is eating pussy kosher or no? So it depends who you ask. In the Talmud, one sage, for example, says, nope, a woman is with her man, and he can do whatever he wants with her as long as she consents, and as long as it doesn't humiliate her. In other words, he's allowed to humiliate her if that's what she's asking for. But as long as it's done privately and with consent, and it doesn't hurt her like inside or humiliate her, right? No indignant feeling. And the others say, a few others, or maybe one other say, no. That area of the female should remain a mystery. You're not allowed to go anywhere near it with your face. You're certainly not allowed to quote Jules, to stick your tongue in the holiest of holies. But so it depends. I'm pretty sure that it depends on which rabbi, master halacha you go by. Basically, for the rabbinic halacha, if I'm not mistaken, right, according to Orthodox law, it's not the kosher thing to do. So I'm going to say that because according to one sage in the Talmud, if not more, definitely one, but probably more, you're allowed to have whatever relations you want with your woman as long as it's consensual, private, and does not degrade her unless she's asking to be degraded, and let's face it, some of them do, then yes, it definitely is kosher. Definitely is kosher. Love your costume, says BBQ. Yes, I'm Johnny Giraffe. Boom! Weasel. But incidentally, giraffes are kosher. Giraffes are a kosher animal. The thing is, if I'm not mistaken, the thing is that they don't know exactly where to cut, or something to that effect, which is why we don't eat giraffe. But it is a kosher animal, if I'm not mistaken, and it exhibits the three simanei tahara, right, of being a clean animal. Weaselbox says, nice name, Weaselbox. Do you know that giraffes have the same amount of neck bones as we humans do, only bigger? No, I didn't know that. Look at that. Thank you for educating me. It's fun to be enlightened on facts of nature. So the same amount, only bigger. You know, I think I may have known that at the time. I'm not sure. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu, melech haolam, she'akol niyeh b'dvaro. Forgive the slurpage. I got some green tea. Okay. To take a moment to give thanks before you partake of something, be it food or drink or a fine scent, is something that the halacha got right, something rabbinic Judaism got right, or Jews in general, right? They got that right, to bring together the spiritual and the physical before you bring yourself nourishment and sustenance, to have it aim at the right direction. Rakesh says, Jews are the chosen people of God. Israel is the holy land. Look, all land can be holy. All people can be chosen. Right? Go back to Eden. There were no Jews in Eden. There was no Israel in Eden. Not a land, not a nationality, not a people. There was just God, mankind, nature, chilling out. That's what it was. That's what it will go back to being again. So, and like I say, if we are God's chosen people, then we need to act that. We can't just carry that around and wave it around. No, we need to actually earn that again every single day with every single thing that we do as individuals, as a nation, as a people, as a country. We're not. Other than that, it's just like virtue signaling in the most sickening way, truly warping the Bible. You need to earn that badge. Free Israel from radical religious extremism. Also, I agree, there are radicals on both sides, extremists on both sides, religious fanatics on both sides, and we need to make it right. We need to de-radicalize and get that indoctrination way, like much more mellower, much mellower. So thanks for that, Italic Alec. I appreciate that, and I said the same thing in many streams that I've done. Yes, we need to free Israel of all of the radicals. We need to have people here who desire peace, who are pro-human. Pro-human. Explain what is kosher salt, please. Eat my shorts. Australia? Is it Australia, I'm assuming? Nice, eat my shorts. So kosher salt is just a name given to coarse salt, right? The bigger crystals of salt, because traditionally one of the ways in which you make the meat kosher is that you salt it, thereby extracting the blood, because the Torah repeats time and again, blood is not allowed to be consumed. Wait, okay. Blood is not allowed to be consumed. And so you need to get rid of all the blood. And part of how you do that is that you salt the meat so the blood is extracted through the salt crystals. And because we want the blood to be extracted more efficiently and quickly, we don't use the tiny, tiny, fine table salt. In order to kosher the meat, we use kosher salt, which is the larger crystals. But it's not that the salt is actually kosher because it has a seal of approval blessed by a rabbi or some nonsensical thing like that. It's simply kosher by its own virtue of being salt. Salt is a part of the covenant. With every offering that came at the temple that was of meat origin, there was salt, right? The priest would take the meat that was supposed to go on the altar. There was a pile of salt. He would slab it on the salt and then throw it on the altar, or, lay it down, depending on where he was next to the fire. There was a rim sort of outside on the outskirts of the altar, outside at the court of the temple, where the priests would walk around, and there would be a couple of different fires there for different things. There would be the tapuach in the middle. There would be, the copper altar of animal sacrifice. There would be oil poured on there, and water and blood, depending, and there was a top half and a bottom half, and the altar, right, and it was a ramp going up and not steps. A lot of different halachas that have to do with the altar. But yes, salt is part of the covenant. It says, Lo tashbit melech brit Elohecha, that you should not abstain and you should not extinguish the covenant of salt of your God, right? And salt is something very, very important. It also brings out flavor, and that's right. Having some salt can bring out flavor. Oh, wait, the chat jumped. I'm going to try and get back to where I was. Okay. Greetings from India. Brachot mehodu. Thank you, Rakesh. I appreciate it. Where are you in India? I hope that I will be able to get to it. Hey, hi, says Raj. Hey, Raj. I'm assuming with Raj that you're from India, too. Weasel, what the heck? The vertebrae must be huge, says Mishitokiri. Yeah, I'm assuming that it would be. So it's the same amount of bones, only much larger, right? I'm assuming that would be the case. Rudy Kruger says, WTF are you? I'm just a simple dumbass in the Middle East. And you? Do tell. I want to know. I'm just here drinking tea, enjoying this fine, fine morning in Jerusalem. It's nice and sunny. Next week it's going to be rainy and disgusting, but for now, I'm looking at the sunshine. I took a break from work. I'm engaging with you good people here, and I deeply appreciate your time and your kind attention. I hope this is of some value or entertainment, because that's what I'm aiming for. We're just having a discussion here, right? Talking faith, spirituality, religion, self-development, giraffe vertebrae, and having fun. It's all about fun. Slayer isn't good after Seasons of the Abyss. Yeah, you know what? There have been different metal bands that hit their peak, according to some. I mean, look, with Metallica, for instance, once Load came out, I tuned out. And it doesn't mean to say that it's not, the next things aren't good. I enjoyed S&M, but something after Load, Reload, that whole thing just changed for me. I think The Unforgiven Part 2 is like the last song I truly enjoyed, like thoroughly enjoyed by them. However, to be fair, I haven't been keeping in touch. I haven't been keeping up with what they are doing. Wait, are you in Jerusalem? Yes, I am in Jerusalem. Is that real hair? Yes, Raj, it is. It is my hair. Shut up, Jamal, says Marco Dees. What did Jamal say? I must have missed it. Maybe YouTube censored it? I don't know. Harafna said something in a language which I can't read, unfortunately. If somebody can translate it and put it in the chat, I'll get to it. Are you identifying as a homo? Asks Rudy Kruger. No, I don't think that I identify as a homo. It's just that being a homo is likely a part of me that's just bursting to get out of the closet. But no, I'm not a homosexual. So yeah. But I don't deny that there's probably a part of me that is gay, but once again, I've never met a guy I wanted to sleep with, so far it's remained highly dormant. Also, being married for over 20 years to one woman kind of helps, right? Bro looks like Vsauce. Vsauce? I'm not sure what Vsauce is. Could you please explain? Gandalf's cousin, says Kent Clark. Thanks, my man. I am not one of the Istari, but I do support Gandalf the, well, I guess I'm Radagast the Brown, because I've got brown and I've got a bit of gray and a bit of white, and I'm wearing a giraffe costume. Nabucus or dinosaur. Hey, you're a dinosaur? That's pretty cool. People, did you know that modern-day birds are the only living remnants of dinosaurs? Did you know? Seriously. Why are you gay? Well, that's just how God made me. Highly, highly gay. Rudy says there is a channel that help people like you. Dude, there's a channel for everything. There's an app for that. There's an app for that. Actually, I am on BetterHelp, and I have a session coming up in an hour and a half. And that's when I think I'll say goodbye. But for now, we're keeping on going. Max says, Israel's days of telling wealthy, powerful countries how to act is coming to an end. I'm sorry. Truly, I'm asking. Curiously. Earnestly. When did Israel tell wealthy, powerful countries how to act, unless it was, keep your schnoz out of our business? Or, you know, I mean, are we talking about industry? Are we talking about ideology? Are we talking about foreign affairs? What are we talking about here? Weasel says, yes, Mishitokiri, I love giraffes, awesome creatures. Yes, they are awesome creatures. Wait, you look like Vsauce. Again, I don't know what Vsauce is. Can somebody please enlighten me? I'm ignorant. Someone, please tell me what Vsauce is, and I'll be able to engage in the conversation. Oh, right, you have taken the vow of Nazarite, so you will not cut your hair, says Raj. That's correct, I will not cut my hair. I hope to go to my grave still under this vow for life. For life. XELFNEC5036 says hello. Hi, hello. Good to see you, man. Osama, says Kantala guy. No, I'm not Osama, though a few people called me that on the streets of the Netherlands a few years ago. Vsauce, but reggae. Guys, you gotta help me out. Tell me what Vsauce is. Rhino Saranta 17 PG2NZ says, are you a preferred? See, I'm ignorant of so many things. What is to be a preferred? I have no idea. I don't know. I just don't know. Mishi says, exactly, I'm glad I was not tainted by the bigotry and I treat people on a person-by-person basis. Yes, exactly, to treat people as such. Now, it doesn't mean be a doormat. It means if somebody lives up to a stereotype, good, then they're living up to a stereotype. But don't go into a conversation, don't go into an engagement with a total stranger with a presupposed notion about, it's like you miss out on a lot. Have you ever tried psychedelics? Yes, I have. I am a fan of psychedelics. I partake of them here and there, nothing on a regular basis. But I'm of the opinion that the bulk of one's psychedelic mind-expanding, awareness-expanding experiences should come from meditation, should come from prayer, should come from studying Torah or other sacred texts, whatever religion or faith you follow, and by the relationship one has with the Most High God, and not from outside chemicals. That being said, right, marijuana, psilocybin, LSD, MDMA, DMT, I'm very much a fan of these things. Set and setting. Treat them with respect. Don't harm yourself. Don't harm your body. Don't harm your mind. These things were put here for a reason. The synthetic ones and the natural ones, treat them with respect, and they can open up many doors of perception, but don't rely on them too heavily. It should be a lovely supplement to life, but in no way should you make the mistake of thinking that there is a truth there from the outside that could stick. You need to make it stick. You need to integrate the psychedelic experiences that you undergo and make it part of your personality. Use the insights that these mushrooms and herbs are giving you and chemicals, right? So yeah, soggy croutons. I'm not a fan of soggy croutons. I like them nice and dry. Also, crouton is French for stale bread. So yeah, I like it nice and dry. But you aren't Arnold, says Rudy Kruger. Yes, but he was giving a speech. I think he was giving a speech at the time to a school, right, to a graduate, people graduating. Oh, wait, I gotta mute the phone here. Hang on. There, muted. He was giving a speech, some sort of speech, right, people graduating, high school, college, whatever it was, and he was telling them, right, you'll never be a true original. Now, it's not about standing out and being original just for the sake of it. It's about discovering who you are, what is the gift that you are here to give to the world, to quote the way of the superior man, and how is it that you will go about it, because you need to, like I said, you need to follow so many rules in life, and you need to know which to break, which to bend, how to behave in such a way where you will be able to live in society and still bring yourself into the fold, and still bring what you have truly, genuinely to the table. Right? It's got to work that way. Otherwise, you're just like everyone else. I stand against any warmongering murderers, says XEL. Yeah, I agree. Are you a zebra? Yes, I am a zebra in a giraffe's costume. That is what I am. Ah, see, who the hell is Vsauce? Asked Kent Clark. Thank you. I don't know either. You and I are ignorant. You and me, Clark. Dinosaur says, talk like a robot from now on. No, I don't think so. I think that would exert too much. I'm just one simple dumbass here. I can't do that. I can't be a robot. I mean, me more Zeep, like Jake did in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Great outfit, says King of the Earth. Hey, King of the Earth, good to see you. I've never met a Jewish giraffe, says XEL. Well, you know what? I haven't either, so it's a first time for both of us. Richard Wilkins asks, what is the best way to explain the difference between ethnically and religiously Jewish? Also, how do you galvanize non-extremist Jews to stand against extremism while preserving culture? Great question. I'll address it. I won't say I answer it because I don't know, but I will address it. The best way to explain the difference between ethnic and religious Jews is this. Ethnics, right, is the place you come from, right, by and large, and the people who you are associated with by, let's say, biology. Religion is the halacha that you keep, the traditions you follow, the laws you follow, right? The halachic rulings you follow, a master or rabbi that you follow. That is a religious Jew, somebody who takes on the religion. And there are varying degrees of keeping tradition. There are varying degrees of keeping the religion. There are also many different sects, right? Orthodox, conservative, Reform, Reconstructionist, Neo-Hasidic, so many different sects. And so that's how you differentiate. That's the difference. Ethnics has to do with where you are from. Now, you could be a non-religious Jew who says, yes, my ancestors came from Judea. I represent part of the remnants of the kingdom of Judah that was exiled by Rome. Pardon me, almost 2,000 years ago. Rome, who burnt the temple at 70 of the Common Era. And I definitely associate myself with those people. Those people are my people. Everything that we went through. That is an ethnic Jew. A religious Jew is somebody who keeps to the faith, and you could keep all the commandments, part of the commandments. You can single out a few commandments that you keep religiously, because there's, again, whatever sect, whatever group, whatever rabbi, there are different halachic rulings on every single topic, 613 commandments, and not one person can keep them all. And yet we have things like studying Torah, Shabbos, right, which are equated against all of those. As for how do you galvanize non-extremist Jews to stand against extremism while preserving culture, I think the question there is, what is it about the culture that we need to keep to? What is it about the culture that we can stand to get rid of? Because there are many things that we picked up along the very long exile that did not initially belong to us, but that we co-opted, that we adapted, that we, some would say, appropriated. I don't know how to phrase it precisely. But the things that you need to discover for yourself, what are the principles by which you want to live? And you can stick a flag in the ground and say, here is the hill I'm going to die on. Here is a whole mountain range that I'm going to die on. The rest is up for debate. The rest, some of it can go, other things can stay. It needs to be progressive. The thing is this, with oral law, after the destruction of the temple, it became kind of stuck. Because we no longer have a high rabbinic court, the Sanhedrin. We no longer have smicha, the laying of the hands. Rome made sure that that was gone. And they knew what they were doing. They rooted out something fundamental about the oral traditions and the Hebrew faith, which means that now halachic rulings must, according to rabbinic Judaism, have their anchor placed in old ancient teachings that are immovable, right? Immutable. Immutable? Yes. Things that you're not allowed to take away, things you are not allowed to add to. You can only sort of extrapolate based on those ancient rulings that now you can do nothing about, right? And the problem is that the oral traditions and the oral Torah, the Mishnah, the Talmud that were written down were not supposed to be written down. It was supposed to remain oral. It was supposed to evolve with time. It was supposed to progress with society. But because they wrote down what was supposed to be oral, then it was now written in stone, so to speak, and from then on, it was canonized. And once it was made canon, then you can't touch it. So we all await the smicha, the laying of the hands, to return. We all await Sanhedrin to come back into the fold, right into the picture. We are all awaiting someone with the balls to reform the court and be able to take things away and add things that need to be added and change things that need to be changed. And the oral tradition, halacha, will once again be a living, breathing, walking, talking oral law. It's a problem that it's stuck now in the past, a very big problem. But Jews went into survival mode. And instead of priests, you have rabbis. Instead of a temple, you have a shul, right, a synagogue. Instead of the offerings, you have prayer. A lot of things happened, right? And rabbinic Judaism, modern day, like Orthodox Judaism that comes from the old Orthodox rabbinic Judaism, that's what was able to carry on and have us survive through the diaspora and the exile. In the diaspora, through the exile. The problem is that we are no longer in survival mode. But all of our halachic teachings are stuck in survival mode. And so there's this great tension that is happening here between us being back in Israel, having a sovereign state, and between the rulings that are still stuck in exile. It's something that cannot be reconciled unless there is finally people, rabbis, masters, scholars, sages, who will pick up the torch and say, let's go forward. Let's get this moving once again. Let's renew the smicha. And this was tried over the centuries, and every time There were other sages who said, no, there is no consensus, we do not agree, and if there is no agreement, if there is no consensus, then we can't move forward. People are waiting for some Messiah to redeem them. People are waiting for a temple to set them straight, but it will come from the people. It's the people who will anoint the king. It is the people who will build the building. Though Rashi does say, right, Rabbi Shlomo Yitzchaki does say in one commentary in the Talmud that it will come down built already from the heavens. But that doesn't say that. It doesn't say that anywhere. Anywhere. I don't know. Ugh. I identify as milk. My pronouns are semi and skimmed, says Clive Harper. C2C. You identify as milk. How fluid of you. Vsauce on Molly. Oh, I am a fan of Molly, says Beef and Cheddar. See, beef and cheddar is not kosher, but it is kosher for people who don't keep kosher. Vsauce on Molly sounds pretty yummy to me, even though I don't know what Vsauce is. Smells Jewy in here, says username MT6OK. You know, for somebody with OK in your username, you've got a keen sense of smell. Yes, it does smell Jewy. Nice and Jewy. Noiselike123 says, I think that Jesus Christ was a Jewish man and he had Jewish parents and he went to a Jewish synagogue, but I just don't understand how the Son of God walked on the planet Earth. He could have flown. Good one. Yes, I agree. Jesus was born to Hebrew parents, lived a Hebrew life, died a Hebrew man, and you could argue if he was righteous, if he was a saint, if he was a sinner, right, if he was wicked, and there is that ongoing debate among the Jews. Some are Jews for Jesus, some are Messianic Jews, some won't even say his name, some say that his name Yeshu is an acronym for may his name be eradicated and his memory be eradicated. Thank you for making me smile, says Weaselbox. Hey, you know what? This world is full of so much pain and darkness and horror, true horror. To smile, to have a joke, to have a laugh, to take it easy. If you can afford to do that, oh my God, just go for it. Just make light of the horrible situation because you either gotta laugh or cry. And there will be many times in life where you cry, so you might as well laugh. Right? What was it, in training day? Right? What did Hoyt say? It's all about smiles and cries. It's true. It's about smiles and cries. Now, he says that he figured out the streets. The streets are about smiles and cries. But that's not just the streets. It's also domestic, in the home. Can you answer my question, said Mason Meyer. I don't know if I did, because I am going one by one in the chat. So right now, he said this at 10:19 a.m., and it's now 10:48 a.m., so he said this 30 minutes ago, and I don't know where I'm at, and I don't know what he's doing, so I have no idea. Kent Clark says, Kent Clark says, your God does not exist because your God is not all-powerful or all-knowing. So look, power is a divine attribute. Knowledge is a divine attribute. It is not God. It is the way God reveals himself in the world. Okay. Because he couldn't foresee the snake in the garden and had to call out for Adam because God couldn't obviously find Adam. Well, he called out for Adam according to tradition in order to give Adam an opening. Adam and Eve's sin was not that they partook of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Partaking of the fruit and being curious and crossing the line and transgressing, that is a human thing. We are faulty, created from the earth. We have that low, dry, cold part inside of us that comes from the earth. We encompass all four elements. We have all of them inside of us. That's the part of the earth, right? Gravity pulling you down. However, right, down to the earth, down low. However, the sin, the real sin, was not partaking of the fruit of knowledge of good and evil. The real sin is that when God's revelation called out, Ayeka, where are you? Adam didn't say, here I am, I sinned, I'm sorry, I screwed up, give me another shot, I can do better. What did he do instead? He said, she did it! And, everything went to hell from there. But basically, there was a divine revelation that was seeking tshuva, seeking returning, seeking repentance from the human being who had erred. To error is human, right? To admit your error, that is truly something. And he didn't, unfortunately. Hebrew, Israelite, or I forget the third flavor y'all offer, says Beef and Cheddar. Well, I am Hebrew because I'm part of the Hebrew tribes. I'm an Israelite because I live in Israel and I am an Israeli. As for the third offer, I don't know, Jew, Kike, Shylock, Big Nose, I don't know what you want to say. Mason, quit acting like you're about to piss your pants if you don't get attention, says Mishito Kiri. Hey, you know what? We all piss our pants every now and then. Sometimes we're drunk. Sometimes we're kids. Sometimes we're just incontinent because of a medical situation. You know. Jazzy says, you're white. You're now Jew. Jews are Middle Eastern. Dude, I'm born and raised in Israel. What do you think? Am I Middle Eastern enough for you? Also, all over the course of the generations and history, and a lot of converts have joined into the fold of the Jewish people and come under the tribes, which means that a lot of other genes have entered the Jewish Hebrew gene pool. And even if you say, no, 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 they were originally black, cool, fair enough. Jews can be black, brown, mocha, white, pink, yellow, red, whatever. As long as you accept the covenant, take on the yoke of Torah and commandments, forsake your pagan ways, worship the Hebrew God in the Hebrew way, you are de facto a Jew. Free Palestine, says Chalked007. I agree. Free Palestine from Hamas. Free Palestine from religious extremism. Free it from terrorism. Free it from warmongering psycho freaks. Yeah, that's right, Mishi. Free it from Palestine. Free it from Islam and Hamas. Agreed. Jason says, it's nice of me to be here. It is nice of you to be here, Jason3714. We were waiting for you. You have arrived. I hope you're still here, since you said that over 40 minutes ago. The Zion Nazi in the chat is funny. Well, here's the thing. Some say that Zionism is Nazism. I disagree on general principle because, well, for one thing, we're not National Socialists in the broader scheme. We have socialist elements in the State of Israel. In some parts, we're definitely socialist. In other parts, we are vehemently capitalist. And so it's not exactly the same thing economically. Historically, we're not Nazis as well, because the Nazis, the Third Reich, take over the world to conquer all of Europe, and we never wanted to do that. We don't want to take over the world, despite what some people may say. So, I bet your hair smells awful. No, it actually smells pretty good. And you know what? If my hair smells awful, my wife would tell me, dude, you stink, go wash your hair. So, and I do wash my hair regularly, which is why it doesn't stink. So no, it doesn't smell awful. It smells relatively neutral. Richard Wilkins says, so you lost the bet. Richard Wilkins says also, what is the best way to represent and advocate for a moderate position with regards for religious and national tensions involving Jews and Muslims? I tend to disagree with mainstream positions. I don't know what the best way is. And I have an issue with Islam because I never read the Quran and I'm not versed in the faith of Islam. And I'm a little loath to be taken into it and to go into it because my view of Islam has been warped by decades of war, terrorism, hate, wickedness, malevolence, and just a bunch of crap, just wickedness, almost exclusively across the board. So I can't really truly go in clean and say, all right, let's read the Quran objectively, let's study Islam objectively. I literally can't do it. I wish, I want, I would, I could come to that place, but not now, especially with this war still raging on, always. Now, as for tensions of nations involving Jews and Muslims, that's very, very clear. Muslims have many, many states where they are the majority. Jews have one majority state. There are many other national states. You wouldn't tell China to stop being Chinese. You wouldn't tell Italy to stop being Italian. You wouldn't tell Japan to stop being Japanese. You shouldn't tell Israel to stop being Israeli. And Israeli, whether people like it or not, is based on the tribes of Israel, which means that it does have religious elements to it. Even though we are not a religious state, we are a democratic, secular Jewish state with religious elements. And there's a great tension inside as well. So the best way to represent and advocate is to deal with whatever situation you have with whatever group or person, whoever it is that you are trying to talk to. It should be on a person-by-person, case-by-case basis, and then you'll know how to approach it best. Because again, if you come with lots of preconceived notions, you will miss out on the individual. That's the best way to represent your moderate or extreme opinions. Because if you're able to actually anchor it in text or in history or in understanding that people may not always agree with you, but if you can phrase it right, if you can marshal your argument in a way where it comes from the heart and is able to be received by the heart and by the ear and by the mind, if you know how to speak, if you can communicate your points without being a bitch, so to speak, then you're able to get through to people. If you want to speak in order to build a bridge, you will find the way. If you want to speak in order to make peace, find common ground, you will find the way. But if you're there just to spread hate and be a dick, then you'll find a way to do that too. Definitely. So as for moderate positions, the best way to advocate for any kind of moderate position is to deal with a case-by-case, person-by-person basis, right? And if you're dealing with somebody who's extreme, you're probably not going to change their mind at all, right? What did King Solomon say in Proverbs? He says, basically says, don't, if you're coming to a foolish individual, don't, because then he doesn't want to listen to you. He's already made up his foolish mind. So let him be a fool and just carry on. But if you see there's someone who you can actually talk to, definitely take the time, make the effort, do it right. That's what I think. I don't know, that addresses the question, but definitely does not answer it. Does goat milk work with cereal? I've never had goat's milk. You should definitely, I say this as a vegan, you should definitely have goat's milk. But I love goat cheese. Oh, so you have had goat's milk. You just didn't have straight up goat's milk. Okay. With fruit preserve. Very, very good. Well, beef and cheddar. Yeah, it does work with cereal. There's a different, if I remember correctly, it's been such a long time, but there's a different consistency to goat's milk, meaning that it tends to be, I think, more fatty, or is that sheep's milk? I don't remember. Goat's milk and sheep's milk have a different consistency to them than cow's milk. Also, it depends. Are you having it, are you having industrial? Are you having it like right from the teat? What's going on? But as far as I remember, it does go with certain cereals. It depends on how much sugar, right? Because if you have an animal milk with a certain consistency, it might not go well with a really, really highly sugary thing, but would go well with like shredded wheats or, something like that. That's less on the sugar, more with the fiber, right? You need to have it coincide. Nabucodonosor says, the permanent instruction of the Alta Vendita is a document originally published in Italian in 1859, claimed by some Catholics to have been produced by the highest lodge of the Italian Carbonari. He continues and says, written by Piccolo Tigre. Piccolo Tigre is supposedly the pseudonym of a Jewish Freemason. Look, the Freemasons go back to the time of Solomon, who hired the Masons of Tzol in order to help build the temple, cut down the trees, that whole thing. You can read it in the Book of Kings. But I don't know much about Freemasonry. I know that it has ancient roots, or if not ancient, very historical roots. But I have no idea. I don't know what Jewish Freemasonry is, for one thing. And I don't know what Freemasonry really truly is as a second thing. So if you're saying that there's a document from 1859 that's claimed by some Catholics to have been produced by, okay, and give me some details. Give me some, we'll have a back and forth. Jews are cursed, says Cookies 1888. Yes, we are cursed and we are blessed. And this is in the Torah. If we go with the covenant, if we keep to the commandments, if we take on the burden and the yoke of Torah, we can be blessed. If we act like we are supposed to act, if we do our job, then we can be blessed. And if we don't, we might be cursed in order for us to remember what it is that we are supposed to be doing here. Mishi says, did you know that the Irish have genetic tolerance for consuming milk as an adult? Really? Is that specifically like for the Irish alone? Because I've been told that all human beings are naturally lactose intolerant after they are weaned from their mother's breast or from formula. But I truly don't know. I've been told that that's why there's so much lactose intolerance, because we are actually literally, by definition, lactose intolerant after we are weaned. And that our biology kind of changes when we are weaned off of our mother's breast or wet nurse or bottle formula. Put a girl on, says Canteb Kevin. Sorry, man, my woman is upstairs. No way in hell is she going to come downstairs and join the chat. She's not of that sort. You look like a rabbi, says Socom Raider. Thanks, man. I appreciate that, I suppose. I don't know. I've been told I should have been a rabbi, but I'm no rabbi. I'm no scholar. I'm no sage. I'm not an educated man. I'm just a simple dumbass in the Middle East, trying to bring you some discussion and entertainment. Who can take you seriously with an outfit like that, says Dustin R5L. See, that's where it's a challenge for you, the audience. Are you going to take me seriously? Because I take you seriously. Or are you going to judge completely by the cover and go, this guy's a weirdo, which I am, make no mistake. But I can also be a weirdo that is worthy of discussion. And that's what I'm going with. I'm not saying listen to me, do as I say, do as I do, none of the above. It's just about having a discussion. So who can take me seriously? Tons of people, online and offline, take me seriously. Somebody from work said that I'm like a rabbi who can switch into Jim Carrey at the drop of a hat. Just quoting her. And that's kind of what I'm going for. Again, make them laugh, right? What did he say in the song in the movie Singing in the Rain? Make them laugh. Make them laugh. In fact, the Rava, who was a great sage of the Second Temple era, before he would give a lesson to his students in Torah, he would start with a joke in order to lighten the mood, and then he would glide in and smoothly transition into the serious business, which I believe is where the origin of why don't you start with a joke? I think that's where it first appears, though I might be mistaken. Annals, yes, Annals. Annal is what Quagmire called his daughter, right? Annalie, Annal. Randy Marsh. Where do I know that name from? Randy Marsh. No, I'm sorry, I'm thinking of the book It, that has a marsh in it as well. Arya Datia says, what is your opinion of legal migrations in Europe and USA? Legal migrations as opposed to illegal migrations? Look, we could all use immigration. It's a question of balance, which I know little about, and it's a question of the legality, as you mentioned, which I know very little about. I do know that you don't want to let in so many migrants that you lose the underpinnings of your society and of your culture. You should bring in people who will be beneficial for society. You should bring in people who are actually proper asylum seekers and not fakers. You should bring in people who will integrate, at least to some degree, maybe even to a great degree, into the culture to which they are coming, into the land, right, that they're coming into. Because if you bring in thousands and millions of people over time, that will undermine the very thing that your society is built on. And your society, your culture, your people, they have foundations there that want to be kept. So it needs to be a great balance. And people much, much smarter than me sit in committees with suits and ties and cookies on the table, and they make these laws and they pass these rulings and do I don't know what. But I know that you need to be extremely careful with who you bring into your country and why. Otherwise, within a few generations, demography speaks for itself. Within a few generations, it is lost, done, over, never to return, because the birth rate is plummeting, let's say in Western countries. Israel is the only one, or one of the only ones from a few, who is able to keep the birth rate going, replacement and up. And other people are letting in tons, other countries are letting in tons of migrants, many of which do not share these values or, and the culture of the people, do not wish to integrate. They get into these ghettos and they don't assimilate into the general population, and you have no-go zones and neighborhoods that you're supposed to stay away from, and police are even scared to go there. And really, is that legal migration done properly? I doubt it. I really doubt it. So that's my opinion. You need to do it carefully, really carefully. On the dead homies, says Chris N. Yeah, we gonna be all right. What are you talking about, says Cosma Alcantar H4T. Well, I'm talking about Jews and giraffes. I'm talking about the riffs and the rafts. I'm talking about the present and the past. Is oral sex cannibalism? Well, it is if you literally chew off a penis and eat it. Otherwise, no, it's not cannibalism. So you said hi. Socom Cosma Alcantar said hi. I'm eating the putang pie up on the dead homies. You're eating a dead homie's putang? Dude, that could be full of decay. You don't want to do that. That is nasty, and I'm saying that. Don't do that, really. I mean, I know that Cannibal Corpse has that very famous album cover, but don't do that. No, I don't think so. Oh, see, M.M. Raja asking the real questions. Why are you wearing a giraffe? Because I felt like it, and it's my birthday today, by the way. I am 43 years old, thank you very much. 43 years old, a new trip around the sun starting today. So that's why I decided to put on the giraffe costume. Real life footage, 9305, bacon is best, so I've never had bacon. In fact, in the fridge right now, I do have bacon. I do have a package of vegan bacon that my woman got me. However, because I've never tasted actual bacon or any type of pig whatsoever, I've kept kosher my entire life, and now I'm vegan, so I'll never taste bacon, and which is okay by me. You don't miss what you don't know, right? But I have some bacon in the fridge, and I can't wait to eat it. People are sick. I agree, people are sick, but people are also healthy and well and in homeostasis. Because he's tall. Thanks, Mishi. That's the correct answer. I'm actually not tall. I'm just 5'6". What am I? I mean, in centimeters, I'm about 170, meters 70. Fuck the Talmud. Jesus is king, says Dustin. Okay, you could say fuck the Talmud. Nothing wrong with that. Christians burned the Talmud many, many times. Unfortunately for you, it's still around and people follow it. Unfortunately for you, it's very much, and unfortunately for us, the Jews, it had to be written down. It's unfortunate and it's fortunate. They made the decision and it was done and it was canon. So now that it's canon, what are you going to do? Johnny Giraffe is correct, Raja. My snake is kosher, says Glenn Carger, or her. Okay, your snake is kosher. Not for the Jews, it isn't, because you're not allowed to eat snakes. None of us would ask this man to babysit, said Slim Jim. I'm actually great with babies. I'm great with kids. I have some of my own. I adore children. Not for breakfast, just, to hang out with. Part of what I love about being around kids is that you get to experience that second childhood on repeat, always. It's part of what I love about fatherhood. It's because you have your childhood, and then you grow older, right? And then you take things for granted. Oh, there's a rainbow. Oh, there's a nice cloud. Oh, there's a nice little stone. Oh, look, there are ants. But when you're around children, everything is brand new to them, and you get to re-experience life from scratch through their eyes all the time, every single day. If you have bigger kids, if you have smaller kids, and that's part of what I love about being around children, because they are full of wonder. And life is full of wonder, and nature and creation is full of wonder. And if we are able to open up our eyes more and expand our mind more, we will be able to see that wonder all the time, right? Infinity in a grain of sand. So you might not ask me to babysit, but I would love to do so. Maybe even for free, depending on if you're a friend or not. But I wouldn't charge much, so that's okay. Yehudi or Goy, says Da Vinci. I am a Yehudi. I am a Jew from Judea, from the kingdom of Judah. Greetings from North Korea, says Le General Manager 3269. Greetings to you. How do you say hello in Korean? I don't even know. Though dread looks like long poops. Yeah, they do. They do look like long poops. Thanks, Patriot Watcher. The dreads do look like long poop. I'll give you that. Real life footage says chosen is a mistranslation. You are chosen in the same way a person is chosen to be made an example of. I agree. I very much agree. In that sense, yes, that's right. Talking giraffe, that's new, says Buddy Bros Adventures. Buddy Bros? What kind of bros? Yeah, that's true. What are your thoughts on Iceland? Asks Harafna. Well, I love Björk. And there's, who else? I love Sigur Rós as well. Great music. I've never been to Iceland, but I've seen some of the scenery in movies and in, on the big screen, on the small screen. It looks breathtaking. So I have no thoughts on how they conduct themselves and the politics and the people, but that's basically where my knowledge of it ends, right? Björk and Sigur Rós, but I love them. Do you know what human means? Good question, Buddy Bros Adventures. To me, human is somebody who is a Homo sapien and made in the image of God. Male and female. Yeah, that's pretty much what I go with. Oh, and everything in between, right? If you're talking about presenting. Biologically, male and female, and some intersex, like 0.0 something of the population, but people can present however they want. Irrevocably human. Yeah. Pervs, says Mr. Smith. Oh, wait, the chat just jumped. I'm sorry. I don't know where I was. I don't know if I'll be able to get there. Oh, no, so I don't know where I was, but it just jumped to where it was at 10:48 a.m. That means 30 minutes ago. So people, I'm so sorry to the people who made comments and things in the chat that I didn't get to yet. If you made it past 10:48, that is a half hour ago, I'll be able to get to it maybe. But if not, I'm sorry. A huge chunk, YouTube is like, nope. It happens when the chat is too long. It just cuts off. I'm sorry. M. Watts says, have you heard of the Hebrew Roots movement? So are we talking about the Black Hebrew Israelites, or are we talking about something else? So I'm not sure. I think if we're talking about that, then yes, I've heard of the movement. And look, they seem to be very militant. So I don't get into that. And I don't think that that's the way to go. But if they take on the Hebrew Torah, and if they take on the Hebrew commandments and the covenant between Adonai and Israel, then yeah, fine, they are in the Hebrew root because we share the same root, right? They cleave to that root and they are able to grow. But if they simply call themselves Hebrew without taking on the covenant, without taking on Torah, with worshiping the one God in foreign ways or worshiping foreign gods, and that already that's where it breaks down for me. So I think I have heard of it, if that's what you mean. Harafna says, I think Jesus was an Arab wizard and God was a DJ with the stage name Sandeep Pentiusht. That just went way over my head, but I'll try and read it again now. Jesus was an Arab wizard and God was a DJ. Well, we agree that God is a DJ, for tonight anyway. Okay. Chickens poop from baboon, says Sir Johnalot. Chickens poop from baboon. Chickens poopin. Sorry, poon. Chicken spoon. Sorry, not chickens poop. Ugh, where's my mind? Chicken spoon from baboon. 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 Yeah. Does anyone know what chicken spoon from baboon means? Sir Johnny Lot, maybe you do? I don't. So you're from Australia. No, I'm not from Australia. I'm in Israel, in Jerusalem, living the life. Oh man, a furry rabbi, says Diane6920. Once again, I'm not a furry. Got nothing against them, but I'm not a furry, and I'm not a rabbi. So you are wrong on both counts. Krusty says Lapidatorofficial. Whatever that means. Maybe I'm reading it wrong. Dude looks like the Jew meme. Yes, I am. I'm totally the Jew meme. I'm a Jew meme. I'm the Jew meme. You can, mimify me as much as you want. I'm a meme spreader, as what's his face said. Where are you? I'm in Jerusalem. Where are you, Diane6920? Richard continues and says, I believe that knowledge and power are emergent properties of the world rather than divine in nature. No, they're not divine in nature. It's simply how we can have a relationship with the Most High, who is unknowable, and the way that we get to know God is through those divine attributes, and a couple of them are knowledge and power. What is the Jewish religious explanation or justification for attributing these to the divine? So we don't attribute them to the divine. We simply say that it's the clothing that the divine wears in order to reveal himself to the world. There's the creator, unknowable, untouchable, unfathomable, right? Inconceivable. And then there's the clothing which the divine wears in order to reveal himself to the world, which are infinite and endless, clothed in the 10 sfirot of the tree of life, clothed in nature, clothed in the Torah. So the explanation is that I will never know the Creator. If I can conceive of it, if I can think of it, if I can conceptualize it, if I can take it into one of my 5 senses or 12 senses, depending on how you see it, it is already by definition not God, but a revelation of God, a manifestation of God, a reflection of God, in the very same way that if I stand in front of the mirror, what is being reflected to me is my physical shell, as it is standing. Highly accurate, yes. But does the mirror reflection reveal my inner thoughts? Does the mirror reveal my soul? Does the mirror reveal anything that is internal? If it's being externalized, then yes. But if it's not, it remains inside and unknowable to the reflection. As much as the reflection reflects my external self perfectly, it does not reflect one iota of my inner self. In the very same way we have God, and we have, right, the Creator, and we have the way that God is clothing himself and being reflected through creation. So everything that we see, all of the Torah, they say, is names of the divine. Names are a reflection. Names are a clothing. Names are ways in which God is revealed in the world. So everything, when it says mouth of God, nose of God, ears of God, hand of God, finger of God, God is angry, God is merciful, God is all-powerful, God is knowledgeable, God is omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient. All of those are revelations of God. None of those things are God as such. So that's the explanation and justification. We don't attribute any of those to the divine. That is a great mistake that many people, go the route. They go the route of making that mistake. But that is all just clothing, right? If a king is wearing his royal robes, pristine and prestigious and completely regal, you still would not make the mistake of thinking that the clothes themselves are royalty. The clothes themselves are not the king, and yet the king is revealed through them in his majesty. Were the king stripped of the crown, the clothing, he would be looking human like every other human. But put the robe on him, put the royal clothing, the royal crown on his head, and he takes on that persona, that reflection of a sacred symbol of authority, right? And in the very same way, none of this is attributed to the divine itself, but only in the ways in which the divine is revealed to creation. And so it's on us to discern and to learn about the different relationships between all of these revelations, and us as a revelation of the image of God. That's the image, the reflection, right? We are that reflecting mirror of God's clothing, if you will. But we are not anything, right? We don't attribute anything to the divine. The only thing that we attribute to the divine are things that are on the negative, what we don't know. Because God is unknowable, inconceivable, unfathomable, right? Beyond all thought, beyond all perception, beyond all the imagination, I simply can't do it because I am a creation, and by definition, I am not able to perceive the Creator. What I can perceive is everything else. And through that, I get to know how God relates to the world and to me. And other people, if you have an explanation or justification that you want to bring up, by all means do so. How is Hebrew roots different from Jews for Jesus? I don't know. Is it different from Jews for Jesus? If the Hebrew roots are Messianic Hebrews, meaning that they believe in the law of Moses and in the Torah, and they reject the New Testament, but they receive, or reject parts of the New Testament, but receive Yeshua as Messiah, then I guess they're Messianic Jews, right? But I don't know what the difference is. There are many people who are versed in it much more than me, so ask them. I honestly don't know if there is a difference between Hebrew roots and Jews for Jesus. You'll have to enlighten me on that. Thoughts on Magog versus Gog. Okay, so Gog and Magog are places, what's known as Armageddon. Armageddon is Hebrew for Har Megiddo, but it became known as the last apocalyptic battle. And in the book of Ezekiel, we read, right, Veshilachti esh b'Magog uveyoshvei ha'igim levetach, right? We know that in Ezekiel there is a prophecy of a war. So one thing you need to know about prophecy in the Hebrew Bible is that the good things will come true, the bad things don't have to come true at all. If we repent, if we do what's right, if we keep to the covenant, none of these things need to come to pass. None of them. The good things should come to pass through our actions. We need to merit them. And the bad things don't have to exist at all. We can completely transcend the wickedness and the evil and the bad things. So my thoughts on Magog versus Gog is that if it does come to pass, it's going to be a great war. People will survive that war, some will, and will be able to rebuild. But whether or not it will be the final apocalyptic battle, I don't know. I really don't know if it will be like that final battle. What I do know is that it doesn't have to come to pass. It doesn't need to come true. If we do what's right, if we pursue peace and love and justice and righteousness, and we do it in a way where we can transcend our differences and the things that segregate us and set us apart from each other and set us against each other, we will be able to transcend all of the wicked prophecies, all of the death and destruction that is foretold, all of the horrible things. Steve McSteve says Weird Al Yankovic's long-lost cousin. Funny, I was listening to Weird Al earlier today, and I take that as a compliment. Thank you. Because I'm fat. I'm fat. Yeah, Weird Al is great. I've been into Weird Al since I was a kid. The people in this chat are the reason I am anti-religion. You know what? I don't blame you, Mishitikori. Organized religion has a lot of bad things inside of it, a lot of wicked parts, but you know what? I still believe that organized religion, for all its faults, does have a root and nugget of truth and righteousness. And if people are able to, once again, transcend their differences and stop being such jerks to each other, we will be able to find common ground, even through organized religion. Because religion, and also organized religion, modern day religion, it bespeaks a discipline. And I have at least some respect for a discipline as such. Of course, it goes on a case-by-case basis, but anybody who is able and willing and wants to take on a discipline, take on something that is larger than themselves and carry it and say, yes, I'm going to submit to this way. I'm going to take on this burden. That is something that can teach you a lot about yourself, right? To take on a burden, to take on a discipline. Giraffe are African, buddy. Yeah, Iker, sorry, man, I'm not African, but if you go with the opinion that all humanity originated in Africa, then yes, I am African. I'm an African giraffe. Jew Yankovic, says Mason Mayer. There is no Palestine and never was one. So yeah, you know what? I agree. Palestine does not exist. But these people who call themselves Palestinian do exist. And a rose by any other name would still smell as sweet, meaning that those people still need to be contended with. And they were here. There's no running away from that. You could argue over when they arrived, where they arrived from, rights. They have rights, they don't have rights, they're under oppression, they're not under oppression, but they are here nonetheless. And a lot of them have been indoctrinated since they were kids, maybe all of them, to be horrible, horrible people who think that killing Jews is the epitome of righteousness. And they crave to do the will of Allah. That's all they want to do. Islam literally means submission. That's what it means. They want to submit to the will of God. And that is a very noble and lofty thing to want to do. How you go about it, though, that's the crux of the matter. Right? That's where it just goes. You were raised in Israel? Asks M. Watts. Yes, I was, born and raised. But you sound Midwest. Sorry, you're from Chicago. Well, look, my parents are from the East Coast, from New York. But, I mean, people say I have a Middle Eastern accent. People say I have an Israeli accent. People say I have some sort of accent, and some people can barely tell the difference. Some people think I'm a Native American, not Native American, but that I was born in America. A true completed Jew believes in Yeshua, says 7x779. Right, once again, maybe if I was around at the time, I would have followed him myself around Jerusalem. However, once he died, I believe that Yeshua is a dead man. That's it. That's it. No, you could follow his words and you can follow his teachings and you can follow him in his footsteps and want to be like him, but you don't follow him. He is not a God. He is not a son of God. He is not a Lord or Savior or Messiah or King or Prophet, because he's dead now. So that's it. He's dead. Dokas Fetub says Zionism is treason. If you're in the United States, you are committing high treason. Well, I'm in Israel, so I'm not committing high treason of any kind. And, I mean, to some degree, if you're in a state, but you support a different state, but then in that case, the United States wouldn't even allow you to have a dual passport. So I say that de facto, in reality, you are mistaken. You could be for Zionists and for Zionism and for the land and people of Zion and still be loyal to the United States and be an America first person. I think those two can definitely coexist and coincide in the individual. It's a question of nuance, I agree, but it's doable. Lots of people do it. Have you read the Torah? Yes, I have. Why, I'm looking at my Torah right now. I try to read it every single day. Sometimes I miss a day, but I read it every single day, basically. Wish you all the best, says Peppers777. Oh, and Press W Bots said, have you read the Torah? Yes, I have. The Torah is the tree of life. The tree of life. Wish you all the best, says Peppers. Thank you. Hey, my woman was on here around 40 minutes ago. Hey, woman. I love you too. Stephen McSteve said, hard to take a person seriously when he's dressed like a giraffe. Well, yeah, I agree, and I already addressed that a few minutes ago, so I won't do it again. It's weird, says Brian Trudy, how people call Israelis Nazis, even though the ancestors of the Palestinians literally met with Adolf Hitler. Yeah, that's right. The Grand Mufti of Jerusalem met with Hitler in the 30s, if I'm not mistaken. Late 30s or early 40s while the war was going on. Maybe the late 30s. And he spoke to him about how is it that we bring the final solution to the Holy Land. Yep, definitely. Billy J2F says, please, I am begging you to lower my interest rate. Were you here yesterday asking me to lower your interest rate? I'll say the same thing I said yesterday, man. I know nothing about economy, nothing about banking, nothing about how I can lower my own interest, let alone yours, unless I speak to a banker. So I'm sorry. You're begging up the wrong tree. You're talking to the wrong giraffe, because I really, really can't do it. Pretty soon the United States is going to separate itself from Israel. Good. It's a good thing to have the separation, right? Because it's one thing to be an ally. It's one thing to have an agreement. It's one thing to share, military, industrial secrets and whatnot, commerce and industry. But I think that the United States separating to some degree from Israel will give both of us the chance to reassess what's going on here locally and foreign. And I think that by the time we do decide to come together again and choose where it is that we want to share things, where it is that we want to keep things separate, I do not understand why Americans need to pay so much of their tax dollars and give it to other countries when the presidents say America first. Have it really truly be America first. Israel, people say, is dependent on the US. Okay, then Israel needs to shape up. Israel needs to get its military and civil engineering and industry going once again in order to be independent. I'm not saying it can happen easily. I don't know if it can happen at all, because what do I know? But I think we should give it a proper shot. I think we should give it a shot. I really do. Samuel says, have no self-created identity, and then you'll get along with everybody perfectly. Have no self-created identity. I don't understand. Can you elaborate, Samuel 1138, if you're still here? I mean, I know that was a half hour ago, but if you're here, please. I really don't understand what you're saying there. I am a Shabbos Goy, says Press W Bots. Hey, that's pretty cool. So the Shabbos Goy is basically, let's say it's Shabbos, and you have religious Jews who can't turn on the light or the air conditioning, right? You could program it in advance to go on without a human interfering, but you can't actually do it according to halacha, or according to most halacha. And so a Shabbos Goy is, let's say that you're in your shul, right, in your synagogue, and the lights and the air conditioning suddenly go out, right? So a fuse blows or something. You can walk outside and say, oh man, it's all dark and it's cold in there. And a person there who is either put there or who gets it will be able to, through you, like insinuating that something ought to be done, he can go in there, since he's a Gentile of the nations and doesn't keep the Shabbos, and he can flick on the light, he can raise the fuse, he can turn on the AC, and that's what's called a Shabbos Goy. And now you have people who have a Shabbos Goy where they pay the dude from the beginning to come and take whatever necessary means, necessary measures in order to keep things running electricity-wise. And I'm giving electricity as an example because that's the classic example of you have a synagogue that is closed, and then it's the Shabbos Goy who opens it up in the morning on Shabbos, and he flips on the lights, he takes care of the AC, everything that needs to be done, and then he leaves, and that's part of his weekly job. I have a huge problem with Israel and Islam, says Doc SafeTube. I definitely agree that many people of all the different nations will have major problems with Israel and with Islam. I can definitely see why that is the case. Please continue. What are your contentions and what do you feel? What are the problems that you have? 870 Darami says don't want to rule world, proceeds to show devilish smile, LMAO, and saying the famous as they say. I mean, that's what they say. That's what they say. What am I going to do? I mean, I can agree with them. Fine. The Jews are taking over the world. They're doing a really horrible job at it, by the way, because they are what, 0.2% of the population? Really? 0.2% of the population are going to control the world. Now, I do agree that there are lots of Jews in media, lots of Jews in industry, lots of Jews in positions of power, lots of Jews in entertainment, lots of Jews who call the shots, who are movers and shakers. But to say that we are going to take over the world is asinine, because even if we tried, we couldn't pull that off. 0.2% of the population take over the world. Give me a break. DocSafe says, how many women, men, and kids did Israel kill in Palestine since 1948? I don't know the number. Plenty of people, and I'll tell you why. When you start a war and you lose, you also lose the right to complain and bemoan the war's consequences. When you elect terrorists to be your government, and when you put them on top of you and say, we go after you, you are the complete rulers and we'll do whatever you say, then you don't get to complain when those rulers start a war, when that government starts another war and get its ass handed to it. You don't get to complain. Furthermore, you don't get to complain when you engage in a genocide against the Hebrew people living in Israel. You don't get to say that it's a genocide against the Palestinians when they fight a war that you started. That's something you don't get to do. No country gets to do that. Nowhere has that ever been done. And you're not special, whether you like to think it or not. Nobody's special. Furthermore, you don't get to completely dispense with the rules of engagement and war and then say, oh, but Israel is committing war crimes, when Hamas is committing war crimes every single day, every single second, every single moment. Furthermore, you can't say, oh, but the children and the women, when Hamas are literally using women, children, hospitals, mosques, schools as human shields and places that are supposed to be protected under the rules of war, but they lose all protection when they are used for terrorists' headquarters, missile bases, and places from whence terrorism comes. You lose all of the protection of the rules of war and of engagement when you take those to the shredder. You don't get to hide behind diplomacy when you have zero diplomacy. You don't get to hide behind humanity when you lose all humanity. That's not something you get to do. Now, Israel does a lot of bad, many problems, many issues, lots of mistakes, innocent lives lost. That is the nature of war. But definitely you don't get to complain and cry that you're losing a war that you started. And if you don't believe that it was the other side that started it, please tell me, if that's the case, what happened between 1948 and 1967? Gaza was under the Egyptian rule. Jerusalem, part of it, was under the rule of Jordan for nearly 20 years. They could have had a Palestinian state at any given moment. What happened? Israel didn't control those areas. And yet they fought against the Jews and wanted to take it all over because it's a religious war. It's a spiritual war. It's not about territory. It's not about land. It's about Islam. That's what it is. Islam must rule the world. Jews are a pain in the ass, in the collective Muslim ass, and that's why they want to eradicate us or have us convert. Furthermore, if you say, oh, no, it's not 1967, it's 1948, okay, what about all of the persecution and killings and pogroms that happened way before 1948? Is that the problem? Is that the state of Israel's fault too, before it was ever a state? Give me a break. Read some history. As for a number, I don't know. M.W. Watts says, why won't my neighborhood rabbi convert me? Why? She won't tell me openly, but sent me to another temple. Well, if you say that it's a she, I'm guessing it's not an Orthodox conversion that you are pursuing. And because it's not an Orthodox conversion that you're pursuing, I'm assuming that it's conservative, reform, reconstruction, or one of those, which I know nothing about. So I can't tell you why. I can have an assumption based on nothing. And the assumption is, pardon me, that possibly, in your specific case, she does not think that she could convert you for whatever reason, be it that you don't want to take on the specific laws or rituals, be it that you can't convert because you're some type of person who can't join the Hebrew people. I honestly don't know. I really don't know why. You'll have to ask her. But if she sent you to another temple, tell me, what's going on there? Did they receive you with open arms? Did they embrace you? Will they convert you? M. Watts, do tell me. Tamara asks, will God forgive suicide? I mean, look, love conquers all wrongdoings. Suicide is something that fundamentally goes against life because it's taking your own life. And I spoke of this yesterday. On the other hand, look, I don't know God. All I know is how God reveals himself to me. And so, will God forgive? No idea. I know that there is a great revelation of forgiveness. There's a great revelation of forgiveness. So I'm inclined to say yes, but, or no, and. Dang, he is speaking facts, says Andrew. Look, part of me is speaking facts, part of me is talking out of my ass, but even the talking out of my ass is an ass that seeks to be rooted in facts, history, experience, and not just how I feel. Because, feelings are very, very fluid. Now, so in some things I speak about how I feel, but I will always qualify it by saying, I feel that, it's my opinion that, because I really, really don't know anything truly. I am very ignorant, highly ignorant. Richard asks, what do you think is the main cause of the rise in acceptance of bigotry in general, but especially with regards to anti-Semitism? It seems that war has only inflamed already brewing escalatory elements. Look, it doesn't take much to make a spark to light the fire of anti-Semitism. Jews have been hated and persecuted for millennia. That's nothing new. As for the rise in acceptance of bigotry in general, I think that people have become... no, I think that's always the case. Look, we are all a little bit racist. It's a question of how much of it is manifested, right? We all have our family, our tribe, our in-group. We sometimes all are a little bit xenophobic, sometimes for good reason. It has an evolutionary psychological reason, right? Because if you were with your people around the campfire, you were safe. If you stray or if you meet someone whom you don't know, he could want to kill you and take your resources. So we have evolved to have this sort of tribal in-group, out-group segregation. The thing is that I think that even though we are a little xenophobic and a little racist at heart, we can control how much of it is manifested in every single interaction, every single second with every individual that we encounter. And as such, it's incumbent on us to use our discernment and to be able to accept not just the bigotry, but the idea that we can have a connection, even with any preconceived notions, even with the stereotypes and the bigotry. To have room for hate, if you want, but to also have room for love and acceptance and embracing each other as human beings, plain and simple, right? Without all of that. A part of you, right? We are very contradictory. We contradict ourselves all the time. We are human beings. When we have such complex psyches, surely there is room there for different opinions to sit there together and hash it out inside and out. So, what do I think is the main cause? There's no cause. It's always been that way. It's part of humanity. We have the good and the evil, right? We are in a world of good and evil. As for the acceptance of bigotry, I think that the more you want to say that diversity is our strength, the more you realize, no, sometimes diversity can be your downfall. And that means that you will stick even more with your in-group, even closer to your family, even more so to your tribe, and have that fear of the outsider, of the foreigner, of the stranger. So you fear what you don't know, right? And you hate what you can't accept. Something like that. Something like that. This is not 100%, right? I don't speak in absolutes. But if you're talking about the rise in acceptance, I think it's because for a long time now, there's been a rise in, you must accept everybody, every doctrine, every faith is valid, every opinion, every vice, every way of life, everything, it's all good. All of it is good and is equal to you in every way. It's someone's lived experience is the same thing as any true moral virtue. But that's not the case. It truly is not the case and has never been the case. And people are trying to say that just because somebody lives in a certain way, that already makes him or her righteous. That's not the case at all. That righteousness is something that needs to be played out in the world. It's something that needs to stand the test of time. Ideally, it's something that can be, right? I don't remember who it was, but he said, act in such a way, where if everybody else acted like you, the world would still be okay. I'm paraphrasing. Someone remind me in the chat who said that. Zionism is treason in America. Many people say that. And I addressed it earlier when you said that earlier. Furry, a bitch of Satan. No. But you know what? If I was going to engage in sexual intercourse and in sexual play as a giraffe, how would that go? Would I cover my partner in leaves and munch on them? How would that go? You could be the Jewish Gandalf, says Ikar, if you weren't dressed in a giraffe onesie. I mean, I think I'm the giraffe Gandalf. What's Jewish have to do with it? Richard says, I know, that's why I'm trying to make my questions intelligent, LOL. Energizer28 says, how do the Catholics in Israel approach it? Approach what? I'm not sure. All right, I'm going to be on for 5 more minutes, and then I need to go, because I have a meeting in 20 minutes, and I want to give myself some time to eat. How do you feel about Ethiopian Jews? I am very fond of Beta Yisrael. I think that they were really shafted when they made Aliyah by the establishment and the rabbinate that caused them to convert. Now, granted, I don't know all of the details, but I do know that some of the people from Ethiopia who made Aliyah, who ascended to Israel and came to Zion, were forced to convert before they were officially made part of the people, even though they have a Hebrew tradition going back thousands of years. And it boggles my mind how they said, no, you must assimilate into the Orthodox rabbinic faith, even though parts of it are completely not part of your tradition. I think that's a little bit wrong. But I have a very narrow mind, and I can only see things, one at a time, kind of, and maybe I am not giving it the due consideration. And other people have. But I think that they were just given the raw end, just given a bad deal. I think they were given a bad deal. I love Ethiopian Jews. I think they are wonderful people, by and large, right? On a case-by-case, person-by-person basis, the Ethiopians I met have been awesome. The ones I've conversed with, the ones that I've worked with, right? They have this humility and grace to them that I truly, truly love. Mr. Big Bad Wolf, I hope that addresses your question. Mason Mayer says, I like how Jews in New York have their own police. They don't mess around. I mean, when you say Jews, do you mean all the Jews, or do you mean the ultra-Orthodox, Hasidic, Rabbinic, Haredi, Williamsburg, Brooklyn Jews? You stick your toothbrush in your anus, don't you, says DMV23. No, I don't. Maybe at some point I did? I don't know. I mean, I've got nothing against anal play, but to stick a toothbrush in there, you know what? I may have. Maybe. I definitely washed it first, though, so there you go. Hey, you know what? The male G-spot, so to speak, is there, right? The prostate. So I'm on board with that. Israel equals arrogance and narcissism, says Diego Sauda 9596. I'm inclined to agree in part. There are very arrogant and narcissistic Israelis, but that's not what Israel equals. That's like making such a broad generalization that I can't agree with that. I will agree that there are some people who take this chosen people crap to such an arrogant and narcissistic level that they become Hebrew supremacists. And when that happens, it's done. It's done, because if you think that you're better than someone, when you lose your humility, that's it. It's done. You need to be humble in this world. You must be humble. Humility is the key to all positive attributes and personality traits. All of them, bar none. Know your place. Come from a place of humility, and you'll be able to gain lots of wisdom. So I understand those who say that Israel are arrogant and narcissistic. However, I don't think that Israel as such equals that a priori. And that's what I think. Pink Fur 3805 says, okay, what am I looking at? You're looking at a giraffe, at Johnny Giraffe here in Jerusalem. Johnny Giraffe from Jerusalem. Big Block says, you do have anything else to wear? Yes, thank God. I have many, many clothes. Many. I wear a lot of the same stuff. My wife was recently abroad and brought me back some new clothes, some of which I haven't worn yet. So yes. Hastia says, are you Jesus? No, I'm not. And on that note of what I'm not, I will say that I am not going to continue right now because I need to eat something and get ready for a meeting at 12. I deeply appreciate your time, your kind and gentle attention, the likes, the subs, the views, the chats, the comments. Speaking of which, it's going to go public a minute after I end the live stream. It's going to go private. A minute later, it will go public. Please leave a comment if you want to continue. I'll be on after the meeting, and I'll definitely engage in the comments. I love engaging in the comments, so let me know. Otherwise, be blessed, be a blessing, have a wonderful day. This is Johnny Giraffe in Jerusalem signing off. Have a great day. God bless. To those who celebrate Christmas, have a wonderful Christmas. Be good, and I hope you're on Santa's good list.